Welcome back to Community Conversations. I'm your host, Steve Mantis, and my guest today is Larry Hebert, a City Councillor with the City of Thunder Bay. Welcome back, Larry.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good to be here.
Earlier in the show, Larry, you talked about taxation and that our municipalities only get 9 cents out of every tax dollar. So 9%. And yet, this is where we live. These are the streets we drive on. You know, this is the policing and the EMS and the fire and the, the recreation. How's that working out with just 9% of the total tax dollars coming in?
Well, you're absolutely right. The key point is it's our city, so we take the consequences of any of the behavior that's negative, and yet it's not necessarily the city's fault. It's nobody's fault necessarily, but we end up serving and paying for things that we think the provincial government and the federal government should be paying for. But it comes out of the tax dollar, which again, and even the tax system may not be fair. Property tax may not be the best way of raising money. It may be unfair to some people, particularly poorer people. So it is a big issue that we only get that 9 cents to work with, and it's going to be a tough budget year this year because there's so many things that people want us to do, but there's a limited amount of money. And we don't want to be taxing people to death. And with all these now with impact and all these challenges that big companies are making, I mean, that's putting more and more burden on the residential taxpayer. And I don't think that's fair.
Well, it seems to me that the last 25 years, successive governments, really the federal government and the provincial, have oftentimes got elected saying we're going to cut taxes.
Yep.
And we used to see the federal government pay half of all the share for healthcare,
yep,
for education, for social services. They don't do that anymore. The province, they download to the province. The province as well has gone through those cycles, seemingly to have less money. And all that stuff gets pushed down to the municipal level.
yep.
Is there any light at the end of that tunnel? What's going on here?
Well, a little bit. I think back in '98 there was a big download from the province to the municipalities under Premier Harris. And to be fair to the Liberals, they have actually uploaded a number of things. They haven't uploaded everything to our satisfaction. And one of the big issues we still have is housing. And we don't think there's enough money coming towards municipalities or in a provincial or federal scheme, because the feds used to be really involved in housing as well, and they're not anymore. And that's a big issue across Canada, not just in Thunder Bay. So, yeah, it's a real challenge. And this year, as I said, it's going to be a very tough budget year. And we got to keep the tax rate reasonable. We need a lot of things to do infrastructure-wise and social program-wise, and how much of this should be, what's our role in terms of what are our immediate priorities, but also what's our responsibilities. And if we have some that should be federal or provincial, then they should be giving us money, but they're not. So that's going to be one of our asks. One of the things we're looking at, and we've been pushing this, and thanks to one of the councillors in Fort Francis, that railway taxation in the province of Ontario is way different than it is in any other province or in the States.
Oh, really?
They're charged by ton per mile. In Ontario, it's acreage. So we could make a whole lot more in taxes from the railways. Now, I know that'll put railway costs up, but it's everywhere else. It's not like we're going and doing something nobody else is doing. And we're having a difficult time convincing the province. It should ease the burden on them too. If that comes in, it gives municipalities more tax dollars to work with and may reduce the requirement for the province to give us money. So I'm not sure why they're not embracing it, but some of the people like the Joe Verramos Committee, the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, are really pounding away at the provincial government. They will be again at AMO this year and the Roma Conference. And again, accredited Mr. Perry in Fort Francis, Ken Perry, he's the one who started this and is really working hard. The Ontario Chamber of Commerce has been working on this for 2 years. So we think it's something worthwhile doing. And that will help ease some of the burdens we have and perhaps reduce the requirement to get some money from the province, although they shouldn't, just get out of it, period, in terms of giving us money. But anyway, we'll see what happens.
So how do you kind of balance some of the competing demands as a city councillor? And I mean, the one area, that I've been keen on for many years is around that issue of poverty. And the study after study comes out and says poverty costs all of us a lot.
Big dollars.
And yet, here's the provincial government, that sets rates for social assistance, for instance, where people really can't afford to feed their families.
Yep.
And so they got to go out and do things that sometimes don't fit with the rest of our society's goals and objectives.
Well, yeah.
How do you figure out, how do we support those folks so that they're not using more healthcare, more EMS, more police time, the things that all come out of that tax dollar?
Well, it is a major challenge, and it's not easily solved. It's complex, as you know. One of the best things to solve the cycle of poverty, it's not a magic bullet or a silver bullet or anything, is providing housing to people, because that gets people responsible. And not everyone is, but not everyone who has a house is responsible either.
Yeah.
But so that's one of the things to start with. And then, of course, you see if you can train them so they become employable, or can you provide them with some work? And those things, I mean, there's many areas that lead to the poverty situation and the cycle, but we can work on a few. But housing, I think, if we can make a dent there, that'll be something. But one of the things we have done in Thunder Bay, and we're finding it, and people say we shouldn't, but is the SOS program, because it has reduced some of the burden on EMS, on our jails, on our fire department, because they got a place now, or the SOS people go around their van, they pick up people, they see that they may not have a jacket in the wintertime, they give them a jacket, they give them some mitts, and also some food, and if they need treatment, they'll take them to a detox center rather than a jail. Taking them to jail doesn't really help the problem.
No.
And
it's not cheap to keep people in jail.
No. Every dollar we can use in prevention saves $8 down the road in terms of the costs to society for putting someone in jail. So it's a good investment in that way. But again, that program's worked really well. And now I want to give credit to the new Urban Abbey. They're working, and they're taking some people in who maybe wouldn't be able to go anywhere else because the SOS people will drop them off there.
Now, what's that Urban Abbey? Tell me.
Well, it's the former Baptist church on the corner of Algoma and Red River Road. And the couple that ran it, or are running it, have done a beautiful job fixing it up. But they're providing meals, I think, 6 days a week now. And they will take people in from the SOS if there's nowhere else to take them.
It's like they've kind of set up a shelter there.
It's basically shelter house, but in a private sector form. And they're putting a lot of money into it, and I congratulate them. They've done a beautiful job fixing the old church up. But they're really doing well, and the programs are, I think, hitting the mark. So those are two small things, but they're important things, and they're setting, I think, a good standard for us.
And so as a city councillor, you've got to make choices here.
Yes.
Do we fund the SOS? Do we
Yes.
fund some of these prevention programs that are going to have a return, but may not really resonate with the voters? The voters seem to be focusing on roads.
Yeah, certainly the voters want, and rightly so, infrastructure is important, because if you can't go anywhere because the roads are crumbling, the bridges are falling apart, then you've got a problem. I mean, we need the road structure to have commerce in the city continue. But yeah, all these other programs like Shelter House, people have criticized this, and legitimately so, for the managed alcohol program at Shelter House. But it's saved a few people. A couple of people have graduated, not everyone. Unfortunately, some of the people graduate out of there by dying, and that's not a good thing, but we probably saved them and probably saved jail time for a number of them. And they admit that. There was an interview the other night on TV about that. So, I mean, yeah, it's a relatively new and different way of doing it, but it's a way to do it.
We got to wrap up. Thanks so much, Larry, for coming on the show. Thanks so much for watching, and please stay safe until we see you next time.